just had a tragedy at the shop. It's not a good day for the fabricator. What happened is so devastating. I just lost one of my best workers to the disaster. One of my best friends just died. Welcome to AmericanFabricator. I've seen better days. Guys, this is not good. Let me just show you what happened. Which is unbelievable. I've had this saw for 14 years. And it has cracked all the way across the gear housing. And it's dripping 90 weight gear oil. What this represents is the death of a major player in this shop. This has been a staple of manufacturing for over 14 years. It's just not looking good, guys. My saw is now completely drained of 90 weight gear oil. There's a crack all the way underneath. The gear head is completely cracked, and it's basically split in two. This saw is a foreign-made saw. It's made by Pedrozzoli. It's an Italian-made piece of engineering. I've always likened this particular machine to a Ferrari, and the reason for that is because the Ferrari, while it performs well and it's probably one of the most highest performance vehicles that you can get, it's also one of the most fragile. And when something breaks on it, it's going to cost you a lot of money, and you're going to have trouble getting some of the parts. And that's exactly what this saw is all about. It's an Italian piece of engineering. You would think it's exactly like the Ferrari in terms of the people who put this thing together. It's high performance. It produces. It's a great tool for production in your shop. But the trouble is, it's just simply too fragile. But unfortunately, I've worked it into my way of doing business back here at the shop. This saw is now part of another piece of infrastructure that's been designed and built and used for cut-to-length line. Behind me here you see the cut-to-length line that is an integral part of this saw. And basically, I'm nailed down to this particular saw. And the reason why is because I've got so much time invested in making this cut-to-length line here. I'm able to make cuts plus or minus 5/1000ths of an inch without using a tape measure. Simply by taking these plates you see here, each one of these represents a 16th to a 32nd increments. And what's happened is I simply bolt the plates down onto this surface that you see here. Like for instance, this is a 5/16 plate. And what I would do is I would take the 5/16 plate and line this up at the 33 inches. You can see the arrow, how it's matching up to where it says 33. You put the bolts in, and you can slide your part all the way to the end like this. This is the material stop, and this will cut 33 inches and 5/16 plus or minus 5/1000ths of an inch. That's what I've built my business around, and I did it using this saw. And the trouble is, these saws simply aren't available. I did a search on eBay, I did a search on Google. I simply cannot find anything that would replace this saw. I have no idea what I'm going to do. I have no idea. Maybe I'll go back to using a hacksaw. I mean, I might as well be using a hacksaw. If I don't have this saw here, forget it. I mean, it's just not. I'm not going to be getting good cuts. My cuts aren't going to be square, and it's going to take me forever to make the cuts. I'm using a chop saw. It's ridiculous. What you see is a material handling system that was engineered and installed to the left. It contains a series of rollers. The material moves on these rollers, and it's just the right height and just the right dimensions to match up with the cold saw. So you can't just go out and buy another saw and pop one in its place and expect it to work right. Hey guys, it's the Fabricator. You know, my cold saw is out, and I've been using these abrasive cutoff saws you see here. It's not cutting it. The reason why is because the blades are flimsy and they flex, and when you start a cut you don't always end up that way. The cut is always at an angle, and you can never get any kind of squarity out of the cuts, not to mention the fact that it heats the parts up so bad you can't handle them. You have to go out and squirt them off with a hose and cool the heat out of them. Another problem with these saws is that it makes a great deal of dust. You've got to wear a mask, and you got to keep that mask on. The dust stays in the shop air for hours. It's very unhealthy to breathe. Not to mention the fact also that the blades get smaller and smaller as you use them, so that kind of throws off your productivity. You're having to keep on swishing out bigger blades to make your big cuts with the smaller blades when you're making the shorter cuts, and the reason for that is because you want to save your bigger blades for those bigger cuts. You know, the blades being $7, $8 a piece, it starts adding up. We don't have that problem with the cold saw next door. The cold saw just has a high-speed steel blade. The blade simply stays the same diameter. You just keep on resharpening it. So each time you resharpen it, you might take off 5, 10, 15 thousandths depending on how dull it was, and you just keep moving. You don't have this problem. So this is really slowing me down, and I'm not used to it. It's been over 14 years. This is horrible. It really is, guys. Here is an abrasive cutoff saw. I've got two of them. I got one that's basically set at a 45-degree angle, and this one's a 16-inch version, because when you're cutting your angled cuts, you're using much more of the blade that you have available than when you're making straight cuts. Now, the problem with these blades here, as you can see, they flex. So when you begin to make a cut, when you bring this blade down and it starts making contact with the piece you're trying to cut, the blade will start to flex a little bit. This is a lot like when using a long, narrow drill bit, and without center drilling, the drill will spiral around like a tornado before it finally decides to want to dig in. The same thing with these blades, especially when you're doing an angle cut. A lot of times it wants to slip on the angle. What this does is it makes a cut in such a way where it's actually at an angle. You can't get a straight up and down cut. And this is what happens when you don't have a square cut. As you can see, it's off. See that? It should be about like this. The cold saw it's always a burr-free cut, and it's a straight cut, and it's a very accurate cut longitudinally. So this is just not looking good. I'm having to go back to this old-time method from 14 years ago. I've become dependent on a cold saw and the results of it. So this is not good at all. Hopefully we can get something done here pretty soon. These machines are prevalent in the UK and other European countries. They're not popular here in America, guys. Somehow this saw ended up here. It was a fluke, and they're just, I've searched, I can't find anything. So I don't know what I'm going to do.